So please welcome tonight's keynote speaker, class of '88 Chapman alumnus, Coach Steve Lavin.
This is awe-inspiring. I've, the last 2 days, been on campus, had the chance to see the men's basketball practice and spend some time with Mike, and also the women's basketball practice as well, and got to spend some time with Carol. Two great leaders, two great mentors in terms of having a spirit of teaching and really caring about their student athletes, and that's not something to take for granted. So last night I was able to go to dinner with Jack Bowerly, who first reached out to me about this Hall of Fame event, and also Dave Curry, one of the inductees, is deservedly being honored tonight after the remarkable run he's had at Chapman. And that was at the Citrus City Grill, which wasn't here when I was a student in 1985, the fall of 1985, so 32 years ago is when I first stepped on this campus. And it's been family since. And I know sometimes people say family, it's lip service or it's a cliche, but there really isn't any delivery or substance. It's more of a slogan. But I know, because I lived it these past 32 years, that this truly is a family. And that's what tonight is about, celebrating athletics, celebrating all the relationships, the 6 degrees of separation that exists when you're part of team sports, a part of the fabric of a university like this. And so it's special to me. And keep in mind, in 1985, the academic requirements for admissions were here. That's how I got into school, thankfully. And now, like an Ivy League school, but in the West Coast, it's this combination of a lot of nostalgic kind of feel from these last 48 hours. I did stop by O'Hara's Pub. Disappointed now that the popcorn is popped in the microwave. It used to be there was a popcorn popper like you had at the movie theaters back in the day. You could scoop your popcorn and get $1 pitcher of beer. So O'Hara's is one of the places that hasn't become too gentrified. It's still, they keep it real in there. But just amazed. The Orange Circle, Glassell, North Glassell, this building, spent the night here, and I almost felt like I was on a recruiting visit, 48-hour visit in terms of the hospitality, the authenticity of all the people that went out of their way that helped with travel. Emily, I probably drove her crazy with changing my itinerary so many times. My mother had heart surgery 6 weeks ago, and the surgery went off the rails. She had several strokes, and so say a prayer for her tonight. We all know about the power of prayer, and I'm going to build a little bit on a couple themes that are really personal to me, because this university really helped to shape my sensibilities, and it instilled really important virtues or values, and I'll give some specific examples of that. But it gave me a compass, it gave me a flashlight to navigate my career over these past 30 years. But that magic carpet ride, the run in coaching and television, doesn't happen unless I came to Chapman University. And the people, the professors, my counselors, just first rate and special. And when I look back at, again, this is not to get too existential, but the nostalgic part of these last 2 days and walking around campus and seeing the change, this kind of evolving excellence, this ever-evolving excellence. Every time I come back, there's a new building. There's some aspect that's been refined or perfected, and yet not moving so fast that you lose the quality control or the authenticity or the sense of family. They've maintained that at Chapman, and obviously that's a credit to Jim and Lynn Doty, the dynamic duo, and their leadership, their vision, both teachers, professors on this campus. And during that remarkable run that Jim and Lynn had leading this university forward, they never forgot the teacher, the student and the student-centered experience. And so while it's remarkable to go from 1,000 students when I was here to 7,000, to see the infrastructure, the facilities, American Celebration. It's been around for a while. Now it's called the Chapman Celebration, I believe. Good branding there by the university. A couple, just again, like the mosaic pieces of our life that we look back on, right, that kind of form like a wonderful jigsaw puzzle or a great New York Times crossword puzzle or a mosaic. Professor Burgell, who taught philosophy, one thing I learned from him, I eliminated the word basically from my vocabulary, because he said basically when I would respond to a question in class, very tough questions, probably speaking of existentialism, it was probably an existential German philosopher. It was probably Heidegger or someone, I'm 20 years old in this class and with this brilliant professor, but I would start my responses with, well, basically, he'd say, basically, eliminate that word. What does it mean? Are you just buying some time before you come up with thought that may have some value? He said it's almost as bad as generally. What does that mean? And well, now that I'm in broadcasting, you understand the importance of words and being precise and saying things in a fresh and original way to engage your viewers. I think of Professor Burgell in that class calling me out on my BS as I said, basically, and I'll remember he said, if you say this is central or essential or, to the text, okay. But essential is different than basically or generally. A wonderful teacher, Bob Bassett, in a multimedia film television class I had, multimedia. It really helped. His creative, kind of cutting-edge approach to using multimedia helped me when I was at UCLA recruiting, because I looked at things through a different lens in a more creative way, because Bob Bassett instilled that in his students. Jim Miller, you talk about the importance of being able to tell a story. His enthusiasm, bringing history and the different characters in history to life and making them three-dimensional and real as though you knew them and they were sitting on the couch right next to you. That was a gift. His passion and enthusiasm for teaching and for the subject matter of history. Someone else could have the same curriculum, the same book, be covering the same parts of history, and they could put you to sleep. And then someone else, like a Jim Miller, may make you think differently about choosing a career in history or changing your major to history or wanting to be a teacher because of the inspiration that he brought to the table. Janelle Shear, who taught public relations classes, she was the first one to teach me how to do a resume and to write a cover letter, and also how to have a campaign over 12 months to build a basketball camp. And I ended up building a camp with my family from 7 kids in the first year to over 3,000 kids that started coming through our camps over a 15-year period. But the first year of the camp was after I'd had Janelle Shear's class on campaign studies and how to build a business and to have a campaign to build your business. She also is one that encouraged me to write to Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, to Gene Cady at Purdue, to Bobby Knight at Indiana, and Jerry Tarkanian at UNLV, and then to go visit those coaches because we began pen paling. I was living in Old Moreland at the time, and they responded to those letters. But that initial inspiration was because Janelle Shear said, if you want to run with the best, you want to be the best, you got to learn from the best and reach out to the best. And that was the impetus of the catalyst for me writing letters to the best coaches at the time in the game, and they all responded. There was the mailbox at that time between Old Moreland and New Moreland. I remember pulling out an envelope with Bob Knight up in the left-hand corner, and then Gene Cady, and then Mike Krzyzewski before he was Coach K and Mike Krzyzewski. This was before he'd ever been to a Final Four or won a national championship. And those letters led to me getting an opportunity to work at Purdue 32 years ago. 30 years ago, as a matter of fact. 32 years ago. Right out of Chapman College, I was hired at Purdue University. I was an assistant there for 3 years, 12 years at UCLA, and then 7 years at ABC ESPN, and then 5 years at St. John's, and now 2 years at Fox. And that's my last 30 years, all of it coming from my experience as a student athlete at Chapman, the things I learned at Chapman as a student athlete, the values, the virtues, the fundamentals of life beyond sport. And even though I think sport is the ideal metaphor to teach those essential ABCs or 1, 2, 3s of life, without that experience, I'm not able. I talked about the compass and the flashlight, and it really was my mother and father, who were fantastic teachers and educators and raised 6 children on an educator's salary, which was not easy to do. And their example, the most powerful form of teaching, was the way they led their life. But it would be my family, my mom and dad, my siblings, and then my other family, Chapman University, and all the people that I came in contact with. And you don't get to any station in your life or have any degree of success without a number of people helping you along the way to get to those stations in life. And that's what the spirit of this room is about. So not only do I want to congratulate all of the inductees for the path that you blazed and for your example, which inspires future generations because of that footprint, that legacy that you left behind on the athletic field, but also after your time. In Joe's case, the memory that continues to inspire. And that's why nights like this are so important. And again, the leadership of this university, Dave Curry, a seamless transition to Terry Bozel. So grateful to have them overseeing the athletic program. And Jim Doty now back in his role as a teacher after that 25 years of leadership and what he's done here. He returns the thing that he cared about most, which is students and helping young people. He just happened to be the best president in the country, but really what he loves most is teaching. So it's appropriate that he's back, and that example is so powerful. So I had notes, but I really want to just start and speak from the heart, and I just want to double check here that I didn't leave anything out. Talked about nostalgic, hit on that. The gratitude, and Nancy, started that theme. I just wanted to build on it. Thank you for that. And my mother needs your prayers, so I'd appreciate any that you can send up. You probably have a more direct connection, right? Some of us have AT&T and Verizon, but with you, it's right to the man above. We need that. And Eric, I'm not sure, is he here today? Eric Scanlon? No. He was in the cafeteria, ran a tight ship, but would come and sit down, right next to the students, and just ask how you were doing. Unique. Even though he was tough, you didn't want to get on his bad side in the cafeteria, very tight ship, and you're a little bit scared of him. The wrath of Eric, kind of like a Richard Simmons character or something. And he would keep in touch with me and call me when I was at UCLA going through a tough time after a loss to USC, or he'd give me a call to encourage me. And anytime I'd come back, make you feel like you were at home. Back to that theme of family. Erin Lastinger, right? I think my claim to fame is I was a classmate with her. She played soccer here, and she obviously, her family and her have been central in helping with the facilities on campus, and in particular with athletics. She was a great friend of mine. Nurse Jane, she was like our grandma, almost like Miss Fields or the Seas Candy lady. And when we were sick, you had to go see Nurse Jane, and it was a little house here on campus that now is probably one of the wonderful buildings that have been built in recent years. But her vision was not the best in those later years, and when she would draw blood, I had a couple experiences where I fainted because she missed the vein. She missed the vein, but when I came out, the cookies were there and milk, and she made you feel at home. And so there was this interesting dynamic where I was both scared but then also felt at home, because she was like a grandmother to me, and was just this wonderful spirit in terms of family. And I can't thank her enough, in spite of the fact that her hand-eye coordination on that needle, definitely not someone you'd recruit in terms of free throw shooting. Janelle Shear, I did have in your one of the courses was crisis management, and when you're coaching, it's 24/7, 365, trying to manage all the factors with media, boosters, donors, coaching 18 to 22-year-olds who inherently we know are not consistent, yet you're trying to get 18 to 22-year-olds to perform in a consistent manner on the court, in the classroom, and in all aspects of their life. And we know from the jump, inherently, 18 to 20-year-olds are inconsistent, and they're not going to do that. That's okay. Their brain is not fully developed. We know that now through research. So, crisis management comes into play because of those skills that I learned in that class. It helped me navigate New York and LA, major media centers, and all the juggling and things that you have to do as an athletic director, school president, or in my case, a head coach, because the speed of the world and being able to problem solve and use your ingenuity and find ways. Conflict resolution was another class that I took here, and trust me, when you're a head coach, there's a lot of conflict, and how you resolve that, navigate, and work through that. So these were all specific classes. I don't want to just say Chapman was wonderful. These were skills and tools and classes that were part of the Chapman curriculum that I was able to use. I had this wonderful toolbox that I got to take with me, and that toolbox came from the classes at Chapman and the teachers I learned from here. So in closing, commending and congratulating the inductees for the trail you blazed, for the performance on the field, helping Chapman be competitive at the highest levels of Division III now. It was Division II when I was playing. And I was a very average player, by the way. A lot of time on the bench. Gave me time to think about my future because I wasn't in the game. A lot of daydreaming. Just on a personal family note, Buck and Joni Smith, I was a little short on dollars. I had to get creative and use my ingenuity because 6 kids, Irish Catholic family, parents that were educators, there wasn't much dough. And so I actually called the president's wife, Joni, and asked if I could go to lunch with her. And so we went to lunch. It was right next to the liquor store. I think it was like a gyros, like some kind of Greek Mediterranean. That's what it was. So basically, by the end of the meal, I said, I don't have enough money to be able to go to school here any longer, and student loans and my parents' support, it's tapped out, And she reached across the table, held my hand, and grabbed my hand and said, "We're going to get through this. We'll figure this out. I'll talk to Buck." I knew better than to try and go right in the president's office to ask for some money, but I thought the president's wife might be a good start, and so sure enough, I was able to get more scholarship money. Then I was a resident assistant, so that took care by being an RA. And at the time, the residence director was a guy named John Moore, who became my brother-in-law. I was so impressed with him. He was the associate dean of students, he was the head of residence life, and he was the assistant basketball coach, about 10 years older than me, so he reminded me like a really good older brother. And he was single. And my sister's the same age, the oldest of my family. I'm the baby, number 6. And I said, I got to set you up with my sister. And I told my sister, I got to set you up with this guy, John Moore. He's associate dean of students, assistant basketball coach, and he's in charge of residence life. And 32 years ago, they met at our summer basketball camp in Northern California. And now they have 2 kids, a junior at Cal Berkeley, Jessica, and Jackie's working in fashion in New York. And that all came out of Chapman. I don't meet John Moore because my brother-in-law and an amazing husband to my sister and an amazing father to my 2 nieces. And also, it saved me a lot of dough by being an RA. So even then, there was barter system. Look, I'll set you up with my sister, but I have to be an RA. And so Joni and John Moore got together, and next thing you know, I was an RA, and then I didn't have to pay for my room. So ingenuity, resourcefulness, a little bit of barter system as well, which we know is important in the business school, and no one better than that than Jim Doty in terms of his ability, right, to get people to buy into this whole vision. So again, it's really about the inductees tonight, but I also wanted to express gratitude for what this university has done the last 32 years since I left, but I carried with me all those experiences and lessons from outstanding teachers. So congratulations, and again, I really think what you're doing here is special, to bring together current student athletes with former student athletes, with faculty, right, and administrators and bringing back alums. It's special. Don't take it for granted. I know we get tired of these things. We want to, you know, there's times where we kind of feel we could take something for granted. It's special. Hold on to it, because if you lose it, it can be very elusive and you don't get it back. And the only way you do that is continuing to have conviction and commitment and supporting this program. And I wish Daniele Strupa was here tonight. I was kidding Jim Doty earlier that big shoes to fill, but it could be a seamless transition like it was from Dave Curry to Terry Bozel. And I hope you give Daniele Strupa more time than the coaches at UCLA got trying to follow John Wooden. Right? Is that fair? It's tough to follow his shoes. Thank you very much. Enjoy the night. Go Panthers!